Hey guys, Dan here with Battlefield Curator. So why is the M1 Garand so legendary? Why is the M1 Garand known as the greatest battle implement ever devised? Let's go over this topic in this video. The biggest reason why it was such a great rifle for the era was because of its innovative semi-automatic design. Many militaries were realizing that a semi-automatic rifle was the future. So the US Ordnance Board started looking at their semi-automatic rifle options. So they spent many years looking at semi-automatic designs. They looked at rifles from Garand, Johnson, Pedersen, and a few others. They realized these rifles are what soldiers needed, and it was the future of the infantryman. So by implementing a semi-automatic rifle into an infantry squad, you now give that squad a better rate of fire in order to suppress the enemy. And also, a semi-automatic rifle would give the infantryman faster follow-up shots to engage the enemy, while the enemy using a bolt-action rifle would have to eject the casing, load around, and then reacquire the target. And because Axis were still using bolt-action rifles, this would give the Americans a huge advantage by using the M1 Garand. So here's another reason why the M1 Garand became so legendary. There was a lot of behind-the-scenes work in order to implement properly the new semi-automatic rifle into the US service. So yes, the Ordnance Board decided from the 1920s that it needed a semi-automatic rifle to replace the M1903 Springfield. But many military officials and troops were skeptical about semi-automatic rifles. They were really heavy, they jammed more frequently, reliability given environmental conditions caused rifles to malfunction. So there was a lot of negative sentiment about semi-automatic rifles during this era. And also during this era, it was seen as a logistical waste to give an infantryman a semi-automatic rifle. So if the infantryman got into an engagement, he might be inclined to fire off many rounds, wasting the ammunition. So given all this negativity surrounding semi-automatic rifles, it would become a challenge to convince military officials and troops that the semi-automatic rifle was the future of the infantryman. And when it came to the implementation of the M1 Garand, they did a pretty good job, I would say. So guys, hey, I need your help real quick. Just please pulverize that like button and subscribe for the algorithms. It really helps out with the channel, and it really will help me put out more content for you guys. So because of all the trials, testings, the other factor that this rifle was notarized for was its reliability. This rifle was reliable, easy to use, and disassemble, and had very minimal malfunctions. And over the years of the war, many changes were done to make this rifle more reliable and more effective. So here's something that not a lot of people really think about when it comes to the M1 Garand. The timing. The timing couldn't have been any better. The US Ordnance Board started looking at semi-automatic designs shortly after World War I to replace bolt-action rifles. By the 1930s, US rifle M1 caliber 30 would be selected as the replacement for the M1903 Springfield rifle. And by this time, world tensions were beginning to heat up. The US was setting up the infantryman for success by already trials testing and implementing the M1 Garand even before World War II began. So now that the rifle had been accepted and implemented, the US needed to ramp up production. And that's another reason why this rifle became so well known. The manufacturing. The manufacturing of this rifle began around 1937, and by the end of that year, there was about 1,000 M1 Garands made by Springfield Armory. By 1940, 150,000 rifles would be produced, and Winchester would also start manufacturing. So also during this time, there was documentation that the ramp up of production needed to be done faster, quicker, and more efficiently. So by 1941, production numbers had increased and the US saw themselves entering the war. By 1942, there were about 2 million rifles produced through Winchester and Springfield Armory. Around 5 million rifles would be produced by the end of the war in 45. So because of those reasons, the infantryman found himself with an advantage and a rifle that was reliable. So indeed, all these factors played a huge part in why the M1 Garand is so legendary. But the M1 rifle did have some flaws. It was a pretty heavy rifle, coming in close to 10 pounds. The rifle only held 8 rounds in an en bloc clip, so the shooter would have to reload frequently. The 8-round clips were also bothersome, so if the soldier was faced with a controversy, such as he had just spent only a few rounds from the 8-round clip, now he would either have to expend the rest of the rounds or eject the clip and load a new one in. This led to some issues when it came to conserving ammo. But hey, it wasn't John Garand's idea for an 8-round clip. Documents show that the U.S. Ordnance Board requested an internal magazine and an en-bloc style clip that held no more than 10 rounds. John Garand's original prototype rifles included detachable magazines. So because of those issues and the ever-evolving battlefield, the M1 Garand would be replaced in the 1960s with the M14. So if you got any reasons why you think the M1 Garand is so legendary, let me know in the comments. And be sure to learn some history, save history, and curate history. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram and Facebook for other content. Thanks for watching the video, guys, and as always, make it a great day.